Okay, my name's Claire, and truthfully I never thought I'd be sitting here saying that I have a pancreatic cancer story to tell, or that I had lost somebody to pancreatic cancer. My best friend Aundrea in 2016 was given the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. Aundrea and I have been best friends for 17 years, so we've been through thick and thin together. We good times, bad times, and we were best friends, told each other everything, and just nothing was off the table. In 2016, in the May time, Aundrea started to feel unwell. Looking back, there was probably symptoms leading up to that we, at the time, we didn't really connect to pancreatic cancer. But in 2016, by May time, Aundrea started to feel unwell. She had severe stomach pains, lower back pains, very bloated. When we look back now, her colour was off. She'd been to the doctor a couple of times, and the doctor was saying it could be irritable bowel, diverticulitis. Now, Aundrea was only 42 years of age. She was a mum of 2 young boys, so she didn't fit what we thought, or what we now then were being told pancreatic cancer was. So she had lost a lot of weight in the last year, but we just put that down to stress. You know, she was a young mum with 2 boys. She was working full time for Tom's Cook. She was the manager, and so life was busy and life was stressful. And we had been away on holiday, a girly holiday, and we had a great time. She didn't feel great when we were away, constant complaints of stomach and just uncomfortableness, but we just maybe put that down to food. You know, we were, out every night, but just things just weren't right. And when we came home in May, Aundrea continued to feel unwell, went to her doctor. She actually took time off work, which in all her years that I'd known her, which was 17 years, she'd never taken time off work sick for herself, and went into work. Was one of these people who just got up and got on with it, but she literally couldn't go into work through the pain and discomfort. She was being given painkillers, being given medication for stomach issues. It continued, even still in June, was still going. Went down to casualty a couple of times. They had give her a scan. They had said that it was possibly kidney stones at that stage. They couldn't see the kidney stones, but if that was the case, she might have to wait for them to pass, or possibly have surgery. But she really was not getting any better, to the point where she was doubled over in pain. She was maybe getting respite, where in her head she thought she was okay. Again, there was another trip to NE, and again told the same thing. At this point, they possibly thought it was diverticulitis. She was in the process of going private to a consultant to investigate it further, because she just felt she wasn't getting anywhere with the scans, and with the hospital. They kept saying, you have to wait so many weeks, and we'll bring you back, you need to try this. And say that it was the pain. It was the pain and the swelling of the tummy, just her whole self. She just wasn't herself, and she kept saying, there's something not right. I know my own body, I know there's just something not right. But say this continued on, and you're going to the start of July. And I remember it was just before the July holiday. She phoned me to work on the Friday. Her 2 boys were going away for a week with their dad, and she went down to NA again in Dundonald, and I remember phoning me, and she says, I'm here again. And I says, please do not leave. You just stay there, just stay put until you get to the bottom of this, because honestly, at this stage, she was past herself. The pain, she was doubled up. She couldn't walk from here to the end of the room with the pain, and nothing, no amount of painkillers, no amount of stomach medication was helping this. So they gave her a scan, and they confirmed that she did have kidney stones. So they were admitting her for This with the view to possibly having to remove the kidney stones. This was on the Friday. Then they were running tests over the weekend. They were checking our bloods, checking everything just to see if everything was okay. But we honestly just assumed at this point she'll have the surgery, it'll be keyhole surgery, she'll be home a couple of days and life will go back to normal. Unfortunately, life really didn't go back to normal. And on the 11th of July, I was actually in Stormont Park training. I was off work that day and I came out of the park, get into the car. I was going to visit Aundrea in hospital. I'd said to her, look, I'll be up about 12. If you need anything, phone me. And I looked at my phone and there was 4 missed calls. And I just thought it was Aundrea trying to get me. She wanted something to eat. I just thought it was as simple as that. I phoned the number back and it wasn't Aundrea that answered the phone. It was one of the nurses on the ward, Sandra. I can remember it as Claire. And Sandra said to me, Claire, where are you? I said, I'm just at Stormont here, I'm literally minutes away. And she says, look, Aundrea's been with the doctor. She's had a bit of bad news. She's extremely upset, but just need you to get here. So my first words were, well, what's wrong? Just tell me now, tell me what's wrong. And she says, she's just had bad news, just please keep yourself safe and we'll meet you when you get to the ward. Well, I'm not known for my fast driving, and I know it's only from Stormont to Dundonald Hospital. I flew up the road, flew out of the car. I think I just abandoned the car, which again is nothing really out of the normal for me, and flew into the ward, flew through the ward where I was met by Sandra. And Sandra took me to the side and she said, look, the doctor's been round and they've discovered what they call a mass. And she says, now a mass in medical terms can be tiny. A mass, obviously to me, was Everest. Later on we discovered it might as well have been Everest. She said, so Aundrea was really upset. She wanted us to call you to get you up. So I remember going into the ward and the curtain was drawn. And this was a ward, it was a surgical ward, so it was full of other people. When I opened the ward, the curtain, and she was in her bed, and two of us just clung to each other and just cried. And she said, it's not good, it's not good. And I said, now hold on. I said, they said a mass. And she said, no, but it's cancer, it's cancer. And I said, have they actually used that word? And she said, yes. And she said, how am I going to tell my mum and dad? What about my boys? At this stage, I'm trying to really play it down, be really calm. And I said, look, we don't know what it is yet. Let's take it day at a time, step at a time. Let's find out the facts first. And she said there and then, her words were, I will never forget. I'll cope with anything as long as it's not terminal. So that was the 11th of July. That day was just a whirlwind. The boys were away with their dad. We thought, well, there's no point telling them anything yet. We weren't really sure. All we knew was there was a mass. They had said cancer, but nothing was officially confirmed. And I remember then her mum was on her way up to visit, and Aundrea said, maybe I shouldn't tell my mum and dad until, I get confirmation. But with the state of the two of us were in, there was no hiding anything. So I remember Aundrea then took her mum down to the family room, and I'll never forget the piercing screams from that room as she told her mum. And the reason for the fear was obviously her daughter had just been told she could have cancer, but Aundrea and her family had already been given that devastating news of a cancer diagnosis years ago when her little boy James, who's turning 16 in January, when James was 2.5, James was diagnosed with brain cancer. And at that stage, Aundrea's world fell apart. She knew cancer, she'd faced cancer. And James, thankfully, is a success story, but along the way, as a mother, her job went from a mother then to that of a nurse. And so she knew cancer, she knew the horrors of it, and what was going through her head at that stage, well, if I've got cancer, she knew how her mum was feeling, her mum knew how she was feeling, and her thought was, how do I tell my boys that I've got cancer? How do I tell my son I've got cancer when he had cancer? And we thought that we would lose him. So at that stage, emotions were everywhere. We hadn't heard, it hadn't been given the name pancreatic cancer. We were just told mass, we were just told possibly cancer. Then 2 days later, the hospital, the consultant came round and gave us the devastating news that it was pancreatic cancer. The tumour was on the neck of the cancer, the neck of the pancreas, and basically it wasn't good. There was a bit of cancer on the liver too, which they did feel at that stage was treatable, but basically with the pancreas, there was nothing that could be done. Aundrea at that stage was basically told to go home and make memories. And if you knew Aundrea, and the consultant obviously didn't at that stage, you don't tell Aundrea that there's no hope, there's nothing to do. And she says, no, you don't know me. And they kept saying, but this is pancreatic cancer. And it was a case of, no, sorry, we need another, we just need a second opinion. We just need the confirmation that this is what it is. And really then pancreatic cancer to us it was still quite an alien word, an alien type of cancer. The only thing we had really heard about pancreatic cancer was, oh, that's the one Patrick Swayze had. So again, we thought, well, he had so many years. Surely, that was then, this is now. There has to be something that can be done. So when Aundrea then went for further scans and a further consultation, the news just got graver and graver. And the confirmation was it was pancreatic cancer, and she had 6 months without treatment, 15 months with treatment, but go home, make memories. And when you're told that at 42, you have 2 young children, giving up's not an answer. It's just not an option. And you look and you search for everything possible. We did what you're told not to do. We Googled it. And yeah, what we seen was basically there's nothing that can be done. And that pancreatic cancer is basically the silent killer. The success rate is few and far between, and normally when it's caught too late. And we weren't aware of this, and we weren't aware then of how little support there was, and probably how little information there was. So we contacted, there's other consultants, we contacted different charities to see what was available, but the main thing was Aundrea wasn't going to give up, and as far as we were concerned, there was still hope. Aundrea, there was talk at the time of surgery, the Whipple procedure, but with that, where the tumour was, that if they shrunk the tumour, then the tumour was removed, then the recovery period after the Whipple, obviously then there wouldn't be chemotherapy or any other forms of treatment. So then, because the cancer had spread slightly, that it really at that stage wasn't an option. So we looked at but anyone would think with any type of cancer diagnosis, you just look for any type of treatment, whether it's from conventional to unconventional treatment, you look at it. And, Aundrea went on a no sugar diet, she tried, an alkaline diet. She then had to wait for the chemotherapy, Aundrea was diagnosed in July, then chemotherapy wasn't really starting to September. So in that time, the cancer's growing and spreading. It's just, you just want, first of all, you want to freeze time. You want to go back to the time where you'd no cancer diagnosis. You then want to go where you can find that time where the cancer is found, and you want to freeze time till you find your treatment, and more importantly, nearly find your cure, because you just live in hope. Well, we did, of that cure and of just treatment. And we looked at everything. We just wanted time for Aundrea to have with her boys. And at that stage, the best case was that she would possibly get 5 years if treatment was successful. And she threw herself into the regime of chemotherapy, and the chemotherapy was horrendous. Aundrea was just hit at every post with infection, with how her body reacted to the chemotherapy. And she spent more time in hospital than she did out of hospital. And during that time, I'll never forget it, she sat her 2 boys down and told them that Mummy had a wee bit of cancer, but James, who her son, had fought cancer, and Mummy was going to do all she could too. And the 2 boys were just left shattered. Here was James, who had been through cancer and remembered cancer, was now going to have to watch his mum. Jack, who had watched his wee brother suffer cancer, his mum was now going through the same. And Aundrea's mum and dad were it was just devastation. It was just heartbreak all round. And for me, my best friend, cancer, going to lose her? No, really just couldn't comprehend it, couldn't understand it, and really couldn't accept it. And we then, through ourselves, Aundrea had a big connection in the travel industry and did a lot of previous work for cancer charities when James was diagnosed. And we then found a clinic in Germany, the Hallwine Clinic, which offered what was called immunotherapy. But obviously with that immunotherapy comes expense. There's travel to Germany, Stuttgart in Germany. There's you paying for your treatment. And it was hope. But it was, how do you fundraise for this treatment, because it's not available here. And we then became Aundrea's Army, which was then a huge fundraising campaign. We had a lot of media, we had a lot of human kindness just kicked in. Aundrea's Army went worldwide, and there was fundraising from bake sales to fundraising nights in the Europa, and all just to raise money for treatment. And we were well aware, and everybody's aware, that the treatment may not be a success, but if that treatment wasn't a success, the money then could be put to funding for pancreatic cancer. And now when Aundrea went for her first consultation in Germany, she asked them, "Can you cure me?" And was told that there is no cure for pancreatic cancer. But what they did hope was for the immunotherapy to possibly give her more time. And that more time gave us hope. And with that, we really did hope that Aundrea would not only get more time with her boys, but in that time that, clinical trials, research into pancreatic cancer would become more, and further down the line there might be treatment that will just bide her time. Unfortunately, again, pancreatic cancer had other ideas, and nothing worked. Nothing reacted. She did get slight relief with the treatment in Germany, but the devastating news came whenever she had her scan to show the tumour had grown with the chemo, with the immunotherapy, and her quality of life was, it was basically, you know, in her 15 months, you could honestly count on one hand the number of good days she had. And when I say good days, I mean good days, because most days were pain and sickness. And she made the most of those good days. I mean, she was a force to be reckoned with. You know, she wanted to use her voice for pancreatic cancer, for those for families and going through what she was going through. And I'll never forget it. I spent a week with her in Germany watching the treatment. And during that time, she said to me, I need you to do something for me. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, she must maybe need me to organise something for the boys, or, you know, shopping. It was coming up to Christmas. And she says, I need you to put everything in order for my funeral. And I looked at her and I said, but we're only halfway through our treatment here. You've still your chemo to go. I said, you know, you've got this. And she just says, Claire, it's pancreatic cancer. I know. And I said, okay. I said, it's not a problem. I thought, well, just a piece of fire here. I'll just do what I have to do. And get everything in order, because at least she was very much an organised person. She liked to have everything organised, set in its place. And so I knew this was part of her control as well, that she knew that, you know, that was there. But as far as I was concerned, I was going to organise this and file it for how many years down the line. And as the treatment progressed, the chemotherapy progressed, there was nothing taking effect. Aundrea just seemed to be getting sicker, and the pain was just unbearable. And I watched my best friend go from this vibrant, loud, caring, girl to somebody who just was in pain. She still had the biggest heart. She still kept putting everybody first. She kept saying every day, you'd have went up to her and should have said, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. She's lying on a hospital bed or lying in her mum and dad's bed with pain medication and just wanting to sleep and rest. And I would go, I'm okay, wee chum. She used to say, you okay, wee chum? And I'd say, yes, wee chum, I'm okay. And we went into just planning mode and making memories. You know, the hospital visits became more. Each time, you know, the way she went to see the consultant, the news was never good. She made memories with her boys. She planned days out, and we still went ahead with all the fundraising nights, because anything that was fundraising would go towards further treatment for somebody else. And she always remembers being told that at her time of diagnosis with pancreatic cancer, it could be 5 years down the line before future research would begin. And even then, that still gave you hope, because we still hoped and prayed that Aundrea that the next bit of treatment, the next bit of chemo would help, and eventually she would get a cure, or if not a cure, just time. All you want was time. And every day, you know, you just used to think, right, okay, today's a different day. What can we do? And each day was normally a hospital visit for some Aundrea or something else. And every day I used to see Aundrea, every day I spoke to her, and you still didn't believe it was happening. And in the April of 2017, Aundrea had another scan and was basically told then that there was nothing left they could do. There was no more treatment. The cancer had spread. And
she really did need to go home and make memories. And I remember getting the phone call and going up to the house. I got into the living room and again we just clung to each other. She cried and I cried. And she said, maybe I'm lucky. I says, well, how do you explain lucky? And she says, well, I've got time. She says, I've been given time to say my goodbyes, to make plans. She said, not everybody gets that. And I said, well, okay. And she says, I need you to promise me. I said, promise you what? She says, I need you to promise me. She says, you need to celebrate my life. Keep going with, fundraising. Keep going with anything you can do to help others going through what I'm going through. She says, because I've had a good life. And I went, but you're only 43. And she says, I know it's short. And she says, but I have no regrets. She says, my only regret is that I'm not going to be here. So with that again, you go, okay, here we go. Surely there's something we can do. Surely there's a path we can take. Surely there's some form of treatment we can find. No, it really was about making memories and trying to make Aundrea as comfortable as possible. So from April, she made memories with the boys. She went on holiday with the boys to Enniskillen. A friend had organised for the boys to meet Carl Frampton. And as girls, we had a makeup day. We had, nights out. And they weren't easy for Aundrea to have nights out. It was literally, you could have seen her in the morning. She'd have been on her hands and knees with pain. But for somehow she managed to get up and put her makeup on and make the most of it. She really was an inspiration. She was my best friend, but she was my inspiration. And you just kept thinking, this can't be happening. Every day I prayed for healing and I prayed for a miracle because you had to believe that would still happen. Then in July, Aundrea had started to go downhill quite a bit. Now, on the 5th of July, she actually went to Marie Curie for what was classed as pain relief or pain management. We still really couldn't accept the fact that it was purely palliative care being given at this stage and that there was no avenue to pursue for treatment. You sort of think in this day and age there has to be, this can't be it. Then I'll never forget it. I had seen Aundrea literally on the 1st of July and she was doing well. She was not too bad. She was in pain, but she was planning on going away on holiday with the boys for a week again to Enniskillen, and she knew in her heart of hearts it was probably the last time they would be away together. There would be her boys and her mum and dad. So it was about making memories. I had gone on holiday and then thinking everything was it wasn't okay, but it was manageable at the minute. Things definitely hadn't sort of escalated to a point where, Aundrea was housebound or, she was still sort of trying to go about her daily routine, which was limited, but she was doing everything she could for the boys. And then I will never forget it. On the 11th of July 2017, which was the year since she got her diagnosis, I was on holiday with my sister and sister-in-law, and they came to me and said, we have booked you a flight home. Aundrea has been taken into the hospice. It's not good. and we think you need to go home. Well, my world fell apart then. It stopped then too, to be honest. And I thought, I'm not sure I can do this. And I remember my sister-in-law saying to me, this is going to be one of the hardest things you've ever had to do, but you won't regret it. And I then got up on the flight home, and my dad picked me up at the airport, and he took me straight up to Marie Curie, where I met two of our best friends, Janine and Jackie Lee, and we stood outside Marie Curie, and my legs went from under me. I thought, this cannot be happening. This isn't real. This is somebody else's world. This can't be happening. And we went through to the room where Aundrea was, and I just looked through the door and saw her sitting with her mum and dad. And her sitting there in her wee body. And when I went in, Aundrea in true form opened her eyes, pulled herself up out of the bed and said, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And I was like, I'm in trouble now for coming home. And I said, I'm just here just to see you. And she just lay back down and said, I'm glad you're here. And even then, we still didn't expect things to play out the way they did. You know, she was in Marie Curie. We thought she's not going to last the week. Aundrea again defied all odds, and she, the next day, was sitting up, talking, still in so much pain, don't get me wrong, none of that had gone, but it was like, oh, we've still got time here, there's still hope. And you know, probably when you say that to people, they think, come on now, she was in a hospice, hope. But you never give up hope, you really don't. And even through the next 4 weeks, Aundrea, she got days home. She was in and out of the hospice, still in pain, still in, but we still got to make some really precious memories, some precious times spent, conversations. And she got to see her boys. We had movie nights, we had precious, precious time together. Then, on one of the days, I used to sit with her and we just used to talk, and we just used to say, you know, we used to laugh about different things that had happened, and she was very concerned about everybody that she was leaving, and, you know, she just kept saying, you know, you promise me that you'll do whatever you can for pancreatic cancer, for hospice care. And I said, I promise you. I said, you are my legacy. I said, your boys are your legacy. And I said, but I will do whatever I can. And I remember one day, and I just said, I love you. You're my best friend. I'm proud of you. And thank you. And she took my hand and she just said, I love you, wee chum. And I'll see you someday. And that was the last conversation we had. That she then just basically never really spoke after that. Then I remember getting the phone call the early hours of the 16th of August. And her daddy just said, Claire, Aundrea's gone. And at that point I knew there was no more time. There was no more memories to be made. All we had was precious memories. And Aundrea had asked that on the 16th of the month, Aundrea's birthday was the 16th of January. So it was quite ironic that she passed away on the 16th of August. And, you know, she had asked previously that on the 16th of the month, because it was her birthday, could we remember her? And I said, but I'm going to remember you every day, you know, you couldn't forget her. And sorry, that we would remember her. And on the 16th of every month, I don't need a date to remember her, I really don't. But on the 16th of the month, I'll maybe do something, just maybe light a candle or just, you know, just do something privately. Just to remember her in my way. And, you know, it was 4 years in August, and it's like it was yesterday. You know, time doesn't heal, it does teach you how to cope with it, but certainly it just is like it happened yesterday. And I miss her every day. I still wait for the phone call. I still check my phone for her. I smile at the memories. I laugh at the memories. I mean, I do wish that you knew her, because she lit up a room. Once met, never forgotten. And, you know, I just want her to be remembered, but I also don't want any other family to have to go through what we went through. And, you know, there has to be a better way. There has to be some form of treatment, some form of early detection. Just even to give you more time with your loved ones. And, you know, I was blessed with 17 years of friendship, but I just wish I could have had so many more.